Everybody, welcome back to another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are back here with our second episode of 2021 and welcoming back two great guests from the VC TV family who have got a lot to share on today's topic. And what are we going to be talking about? Robotics, manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and in summary, Industrial 4.0. What has happened and what is about to happen here as we enter in 2021, as 2020 threw us all kind of wrenches in the process of our supply chains and also advancements in Industrial 4.0 all over the place. And we're going to be talking about what's to come here this year, again in 2021, but also what can we expect as investors and what we should be looking at, but also as entrepreneurs, where should we be focusing our time? And before we get started, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, click subscribe, check out the archive as well. We bring together the best and the brightest every day, all day, in different time zones from around the world to share with you their thoughts and insights about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world and their on-the-ground perspective. And today, the two guests that we've got are no shy of doing that as well and are great at what they're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out. We'd love to find the right spot for you. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Hasmic and all the other team members that make VCTV possible every single day as we bring everyone together to show you the best and the brightest as well. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Keith, it's a pleasure to see you. Happy New Year. Welcome. You know the rep. Intro background for the audience, please.
Happy New Year, Kyle. Yeah, great to be back. I've been doing venture capital for 20 years now, all in this kind of industrial clean tech space. Lots of work in manufacturing. Before that, I was an entrepreneur through the 1990s, was headhunted into Mitsubishi Corporation to start up and run their Canadian venture capital activities, which came to be focused on the industrial and clean tech side post the dot-com collapse. I then became president of BASF Venture Capital America, opened up their office in Silicon Valley. And then following that was general partner of Pangea Ventures, raising and running funds 3 and 4. In 2020, I broke off and founded a new firm called Upper Stage Ventures, which is a hybrid approach between private equity, but bringing in some of the venture capital toolbox. We are acquiring companies in the $5 to $25 million revenue range. And then taking those companies out to the international markets where we are well networked.
This is exciting. This is a little bit more than you teased last year. So this is exciting to hear. Welcome back. Welcome to the new year and excited to see where Upper Stage Ventures goes now that we know a little bit more about it as well. So congratulations on that, Keith. And yeah, Brett, thanks. Welcome, of course. And Brett, welcome back to the show. Happy New Year to you and our special guest. Yes. A little intro and a little background.
Yeah, so Brett Noyes, founder and director of Unventures. We're an early stage syndicate, primarily focused on what we call the economies 3.0. So interested to talk about industrial 4.0. That'll be an interesting conversation and see where the overlaps are. Our primary focus is on kind of the areas within that are future of work, fintech, SMB automation, and regulatory and data compliance. But definitely have a lot of interest in what we're talking about today. Kind of as a greater background, I grew up in a small business family, so I've grown on both of my side and my wife's side. We come from a small business manufacturing side and as well as distribution. So very interested to see, how that's going to evolve in this next, kind of 10 to 20 years.
Well, so let's jump right in. I mean, how do you see it evolving in the next 20 years? I mean, looking at really just the decade, so the next 10 years, as we kind of change directions here going into 2021, 2020 set that foundation. If anything, accelerated a lot of the changes as we've talked about all year last year to where we are today. And now looking at the decade ahead, where does this all go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't know. I think we know where it needs to go. I mean, I think some of the things that I've been saying for like probably the last 5 years is that the robots are coming, and it seems a little backhanded, a little, sarcastic, and it is. But I think whether it's AI, disrupting the workforce, the professional workforce as we know it today, or robots changing manufacturing, that these things are coming, and they're giving kind of coming slowly and incrementally. I think the 2008 crisis really pushed robotics forward. A lot of those jobs were replaced by robots, and those jobs are never coming back. So I think that's one area that's just going to continue to grow and needs to grow. One area I think that was really exposed through the pandemic is that we were not prepared with micro manufacturing. I think that if we were able to, we've offshored it obviously, but I think there's a great need for micro manufacturing within each community, and the ability to kind of fulfill our own needs, whether it's for the environment or just our needs. I just feel like there's a great need to bring manufacturing back to the US, but not in the form that we've done it historically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and then I know that's going to lead right into something that Keith's going to mention, because we did see a big disruption around global supply chains and really just the entire value chain network for almost anything as well, right? Physical and digital really got disrupted in some way in 2020, which made us question how those were going to live and breathe going forward. And Keith, that plays right into your world and your experiences. Same question to Brett. I mean, how do you see this evolving over the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, I think that the pandemic's exposed a ton of weakness throughout the supply chain. And before I've talked about single source, whether usually inadvertent, accidental single source supply existing within a supply chain, but all the way through to the last mile, we've seen a huge breakdowns. This Christmas shopping season also exposed further weakness when we saw the postal services as well as the private services, the FedEx and UPS, etc., where they had great difficulty in keeping up with the demand as due to the pandemic. People really shifted to online shopping, and people were already online shopping, but for Christmas presents, maybe they were going out to the mall, etc. Suddenly, the vast majority of things are coming in through services, and I have stuff that I've ordered that I can see is still sitting in a warehouse and has been for weeks, just a few miles from my home, and it's just been sitting there. And that is a failure of the information services, the software, the databasing that is part of the supply chain, which is low-hanging fruit, things that can be dramatically improved. I've been an advocate on the shows on this topic before for the role of sensors and their integration into big data and AI. I think that a lot of these weaknesses can be addressed by putting in more and more ubiquitous sensors to get more information about where things are, how they are moving, what is their status. And that's all the way from manufacturing right through to the logistics things that I'm complaining about.
Well, and it also could lead into like things like connected packaging. And so to flip the script as investors to both of you, where are you excited about to put capital to work over the next year and potentially the decade ahead? But also, where are maybe some of those areas of opportunity that you're starting to look at now here in 2021 that you weren't previously? And Keith, I'm going to let you keep going, and then I'll switch back to Brett and our special guest here in just a moment. But where are you looking to put money to work this year?
Well, as I've said before, Upper Stage, we are focused on acquiring companies that are making an impact in the supply chain. And that is everything from the manufacturing through the logistics, fintech, secure tech. There's a wide range of things there where we can play. But you just touched on packaging, so maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. I think there really is a role for smart packaging here to go beyond just UPC codes or even RFID kind of things. One of my companies within the Pangea Fund 4 portfolio is a company out of, well, it's kind of distributed between California, Hawaii, and Arizona, but a company called TrueTag. They developed this smart packaging material, which is actually edible. And it doesn't even need to go into the packaging. It can be actually in a bottle of wine, on a steak, or of course on a label, or it can be it can be anywhere within a package at all. It is invisible, but can be scanned even just by your smartphone to get information that that this product is legitimate and to trace its provenance. To know where it's at. A product like that can be so, where the packaging needn't be separate from the product itself, and can be scanned very easily and very quickly, allows for the idea. I mean, if you want to have ubiquitous sensors, right? Everybody's got their smartphone, right? And you are putting that power into the hands, not just of the workers in your supply chain, but at your consumer level as well. I love that. It can also be automated everywhere along the line, where things are at, where they came from, what is their status. I love that a lot.
Yeah, well, it also plays a role, I would say, in your additional thesis around sustainability, which is another piece of this entire puzzle.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah, and my other role is as the chairman of the Foresight Clean Tech Accelerator Center, Canada's largest clean tech accelerator. We are putting together a fund that's affiliated with that and making investments into clean tech. A big part of the investment thesis there is clean tech as a service. It took me a long time to develop a really sound data-derived investment thesis that gave me confidence. You can really repeatedly make money in clean tech. I've been lucky in my career. My track record numbers are really good, but the industry as a whole has really suffered from bad returns, largely driven by the Cylindras of this world, just throwing $1 billion out the window. Very, very upsetting, and it's hard for smaller companies to overcome a strong negative signal like that. But I believe companies like this that are in sensors, that are in various roles in the supply chain, they can position their products as services, supplying them under a different business model, which allows them not only to monitor how their products are being used, but also to take their fair share of the value being created by their technology. That is the key. Rather than just selling a commodity, a one-time equipment sale, you can actually be a partner with the customers that are using your technology to generate significant value.
Well, and you're now part of the value chain, right? So you're not a one-off. To your point, that's very good. So thank you, Keith. Brett, to you. I mean, same question. Where are you looking to put capital to work around Industrial 4.0 this year that may have been different than last year?
So, I mean, I think this isn't necessarily an area that we look at, but it's like everything we do kind of touches it. And I think that Keith kind of touched on something around the fintech piece of it. So that's a core area of our thesis. And I think where we're really interested is where logistics and the fintech and the payments piece automatically happen. So probably 2 or 3 years ago, we had a pretty strong thesis around trade finance, and we kind of learned some interesting lessons, but still feel like if you can get and I love this idea that Keith is talking about, these sensors, right? If you can get all those pieces linked together, like people should be automatically get paid as soon as something's arrived and checked in. And there's all these kind of process automation issues within the supply chain management that can be, when you start to marry the IoT pieces, potentially AI, and the payments piece, then it becomes a lot more efficient system than currently exists. I mean, I think we all know that there's probably a lot of reasons why people they're either used to this system of inefficiency, and sometimes people, not paying your suppliers and fighting them is something that exists and people make money on. But we'd love to see people that are trying to tackle those issues is kind of probably the area that we'll focus the most on this year.
Well, and what's interesting that you both brought up is this idea of all of this really kind of coming together, right? So we call it Industrial 4.0 because that's a good term to use to summarize it, but it really includes almost everything we all look at and talk about, which is really a part of the bigger Industrial 4.0, right? So this next big revolution as all technology, as all products that we're looking at as well. Do you both see that that consolidation furthering, where, I mean, we're just going to talk about, how technology is all going to work together and how it's just going to create more efficiency? Brett, I'll come to you. I mean, you're going from Industry 4.0 to fintech to back office to AI and data, and then Keith, I've got an interesting question for you around sensors. So, Brett, do you see that all just kind of combining into one?
I mean, I don't know what the catalyst, and maybe, and hopefully it's not like pandemic 2.0 or something that pushes us to that. But it doesn't seem like, people have ingrained ways of doing things, process systems plus legacy, software that really stops the adoption. I think when we talk about these things, they're not, as we know, like all of these problems could be solved, right? But one of the biggest challenges that we found in trade finance is for it to really work is that it made everyone from top to bottom had to be involved. And when one of the pieces fell off, then the system didn't necessarily work. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that needs to overcome is someone building a, kind of a software or a platform that, everyone can get on and making sure that the business model works for everybody and that, people can, easily go away from their legacy systems. So, I mean, to kind of answer your question, I mean, I'm skeptical that it will happen, right? And we know it can happen. It's a people problem at the end of the day. It's no longer a technology problem, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and I think we're in that big progression push right now where technology has started to work together, right? We're starting to see that more deeper integration than we've ever expected. And if anything, for the past decade, it's been teased. And to your point, the technology is now here. It's just really making the dots connected if and when needed be. And that also brings up a great question for you, Keith. I know you have a comment, so go ahead and add your comment. I saw you.
I want to hear this question.
All right. So sensors. We both have experience, all three of us have experience in the world of sensors, also in the bigger picture of the Internet of Things. Maybe why have we not seen sensors as widely adopted as one would expect here in 2021? I mean, we just came from a wild decade of connected everything. And we can argue how that started, where that started, and kind of where it progressed. But let's just summarize it as it was the connected decade. Now, here we are in 2021, and we're still talking about sensors as if they're kind of a new concept. So maybe why, to the question to you, why have we not seen a wider adoption?
Well, of course, they're not a new concept, but we have seen increased integration of sensors. Particularly, I would point to things that everybody can relate to, like within your car, or within your smartphone, or within your home appliances, right? We now have sensors that tell us, when if we have food that is spoiling in a fridge, right? LG's top fridges will tell you that now. When the dishes are dry in the dishwasher and it shuts off in a smart way. Your car now is filled with sensors all over the place. And you don't think about your smartphone, but but the sensors in that are really sophisticated and increasing in number with every generation. It's the thing about sensors is that they are and should be invisible, so you don't realize the proliferation. But speaking directly to your question, because I think you are pointing to something legitimate, the biggest problem here has been the sheer avalanche of data, the tsunami of data that would come from ubiquitous sensors. We have not until recently, and maybe still we're only developing the ability to properly handle all that data and to tease out this signal that is there. Now, I think I've told this story on here before, but maybe there's a different audience today, so I'm going to risk telling it again. A couple of years ago, I was looking at a sensor company, and their product ostensibly would tell you if your furnace filter should be switched soon, right? That was what they were selling on. That was their value proposition. But the data revealed how people lived their lives, who lived there, when they cooked, when they slept, if they had pets, what kind of pets they had, when they showered, when when there were guests over, everything like that could be seen in this data, which was just measuring a handful of things that would be needed to know if your furnace filter was failing. But by sampling, you don't even have to sample very often, even every 15 minutes, you could see there was particles in the air. Somebody was cooking. There was increased humidity. Somebody was bathing. That was all there. And the possibilities for what the value that could be realized out of something like that dwarfs the value proposition of getting an early warning that your furnace filter needs to be changed. But how do you monetize it? So, there are applications like elder care. I actually got excited about that one because, my mom is now into her upper 70s and she lives alone. She's independent, fiercely, and I want her to have that as long as she can. It'd be great if I just had something on my smartphone that has like, oh, green lights, everything's cool with mom, right? Be like, yellow light, oh, you better check in on her, right? Like, it doesn't need to tell me that she hasn't bathed for 3 days or she hasn't cooked for herself for a couple of days or something like that. It just needs to give me a warning, go and check on mom, not invade the privacy. But that's the risk there too. There's so much revealed in that data. But going to the industry 4.0, making it specific to that, integrated sensors throughout a process can identify not just that things are running properly or to identify a mode of failure, but fed back properly into software that is processing all that data, and perhaps it integrates AI or any number of sophisticated techniques, can find ways to improve on manufacturing processes, to improve efficiencies, whether material or energy or time related, and to find ways to do things better. That is something that I think has not been adequately addressed, because in order to install these sensors, you would have to shut down manufacturing for at least a day, and then fine tune these. But I believe the benefits would soon make such a shutdown pay for itself very quickly.
Well, it sounds like this is a huge area of opportunity as well. So, Brett, to you, thank you, Keith. Brett, to you, I mean, what do you see as the areas of opportunity? So, either as an investor or as a founder, that people should be paying attention to here in the next year? Because I think we're already starting to see it 2 days into the year, 2 days in the work week into the year here. New companies are coming up, new funding announcements are happening, and this year has a momentum carrying out of last year. So, where do you see the areas of opportunity people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I'll kind of go back to what I talked about earlier. I think, I would love to see entrepreneurs that are focusing on aspects of micro manufacturing and the logistics around it. I think that that's kind of a trend that we will see. And I think we're at the really early stages of it. So, with this subject, right, there's so many different areas, like Keith was talking about, just different ways of, making the large existing manufacturers better using the technology. There's just kind of, and then the data piece, right? So, from the entrepreneur standpoint, like, there are tons of problems to be solved, right? I think it's just, if you're an entrepreneur, just, especially if you're working in industry, right? What is the problem you see that that there's not an existing, vendor out there, and then thinking about is this a big enough problem, right? That's going to be worthwhile for your time as well as venture capital. Like, are you solving a big problem?
Absolutely. And also, just a quick follow-up, fintech, which I know is a huge area of focus for you, kind of back office areas as well. So looking at fintech, decentralized finance is a bigger picture. Where do you see the opportunities in 2021? And then Keith, I'll come to you for just a second.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of expand outside of that. I mean, I think the DeFi space and going from centralized finance to DeFi is an interesting area when I think about bigger or globally expansive problems. Oftentimes, other stuff that we're interested in as well as emerging market problems. So I think, oftentimes I think that when you see stuff, you see entrepreneurs in the United States, they're kind of oftentimes like solving what seems like a very small problem here, but could be, life changing, country changing in a different market, right? So there's still, I mean, I guess sort of like what, it's probably about 6, 7 years into this fintech revolution, and it really feels like it's very mature in the US, but there's massive problems to be solved in emerging markets. So that's an area that we'll be continue to be focused on as well.
Awesome. And Keith, thank you, Brett. Keith, any closing thoughts that you would like to add as we come to wrap here for today on today's topic? And also, again, your predictions or areas of opportunity that people should be paying attention to in 2021 outside of just Industrial 4.0?
Sure. Well, I guess I should advocate for clean tech here and now. We are Industrial 4.0 can fit within clean tech mandate because it does enable energy and material efficiencies, which is the very definition of clean tech. I think it will be one of the best performing, if not the best performing subsector of clean tech. It's certainly where I will be focusing a lot of my efforts. I think it also lends itself really well to the business model argument that I hinted at earlier in the program. So I'm going to be active there. I think we're going to see more investors active there. Certainly 2020, we saw a big surge in clean tech. It sort of hit bottom after a long, bad decade from the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, right through until 2019. But in 2020, we saw a bounce back, and I think we're going to continue to see that as people start putting their money into smart clean tech investments and not capital intensive subsidizing of large projects that ultimately don't have a chance of massive success. Instead, focus on things that are capital efficient, making a big impact, and where there is a market urgency.
And where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can follow me at Twitter, Keith A. Gillard. Upper Stage Ventures is the name of my firm, but it's pretty stealthy. Mostly you just follow me on LinkedIn, I think is the best way to do it.
Looking forward to the day where it's no longer stealthy and we've got more than a splash page. Can't wait, Keith. Thank you again for joining today. And Brett, to you, closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
I was about to have a follow-up question for Keith. It's kind of interesting because clean tech is a hard space. It's a space we've decided to stay away from. You've kind of, I think you answered my question. So I was trying to pick apart like why you've been successful where others have failed, but I think you kind of closed really well with that. So some couple good tidbits there.
Well, let me just interrupt you to give a quote from Tom Baruch at CMEA, the godfather of advanced materials investing, said, and this is going back about 15 years, he said to me, the longer I'm in this business, the more I'm convinced that it's all just dumb luck. And I think, yeah, I've made some smart moves, absolutely. But I've definitely dodged a lot of bullets. Companies I was excited about that I didn't end up investing in and ended up being grateful that I didn't.
Well, that is, yeah. And I think that's some great advice. So Keith, it's been amazing to share this panel with you. I'll just kind of finish with, where you guys can find me. Brett Noyce, BR Noyce at unventures.co. On Twitter, not that very active, but Brett Noyce, and also LinkedIn, Brett Noyce as well. So, and as always, Kyle, thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel.
Of course. Again, thank you, Keith. Thank you, Brett. Happy New Year to you both. And again, glad to see you here in 2021. I'm looking forward to seeing you both a lot more as we've got a ton to talk about this year. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do check out the archive, not only to see more videos of Keith and Brett, but also all of our speakers that we've brought together from around the world in a wild and crazy year that was 2020, preparing yourself for 2021, where you should be laying your bets as an investor, but also where you should be building or thinking about building if you need ideas as an entrepreneur as well. What better way to kick off the year here in 2021, entrepreneurs, than joining us on the virtual stage that we've built for you here at VCTV. Join us, pitch us your company, product, or service, along with building relationships with each and every one of us, getting real-time feedback and exposure to the entire VCTV community. Reach out to the team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right spot for you. And a big thank you to that team at LATOKEN for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, on social media as well, just like Keith and Brett. So do reach out, and please do add context as you do reach out to any of us as to where you heard us, what you want to talk about, and how we can continue the discussion. With that, we'll be back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.